Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is David Sandalo. I'm the inaugural fellow at Columbia's new Center on Global Energy Policy. This is part of a continuing series of discussions that we're having on global energy topics. The Center on Global Energy Policy is about a year old now under the direction of our leader, Jason Bordoff. It's really taken off and grown at a remarkable rate. Jason just got back from a session in Addis Ababa last week talking about energy policy in Africa. We've done one in Beijing in the past couple of months. Here we're talking about Japan. We even did one last month on New York and the New York area and talking about resilience of the fuel system here in the New York area in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. So we have quite a series of events, a series of research underway. And we're particularly delighted to be able to host my old friend Okuya-san, who lived in New York and Washington, D.C. for a number of years, 3 or 4 years, I think? 3 years. 3 years, where I had a chance to work with him on a number of issues, including rare earth metals and some other topics that we worked on very closely. And Toshikazu Okuya is currently the director of the Energy Supply and Demand Policy Office at METI. Where he's in charge of creating Japan's mid to long-term energy policy, which he's going to talk to us about. His work is of interest for a number of reasons. First, because Japan's energy policy matters for Japan. It also matters for the world. Also note that the United States is currently embarked on a new strategic energy planning process under the direction of U.S. Energy Secretary Ernie Moniz. And so what Japan is doing, I think, is an interesting model for what the United States government is currently embarked on. Immediately before Okuya-san was in his assignment here in the US 3 years ago, he worked extensively on promoting healthcare industries and reforming the healthcare system in Japan. So he's really got very diverse intellectual background. He's worked over a number of years on S&T issues, and he drafted energy statutes in Japan, including the Electricity Business Act. You good? And was also involved in a plan years ago to reform the National Civil Service System, which made a big difference in Japan. He studied and conducted research at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He's overcome the handicap of a Harvard degree to go on to a very successful career, and we're delighted to have him here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your introduction for me, Mr. Sandaro. My name is Toshikazu Okuya. Please call me Toshi. And I'm the director for Energy Supply Demand Policy Office, the Agency for Natural Resources and Energy, METI. And today, so I'm very pleased to share our new strategic energy plan that we spent a long time to make this as a cabinet decision in Japan. And this is the first return to New York for me since last June. And I lived in Hell's Kitchen in 3 years. Yesterday, I visited a farmer's market where I went every weekend near Port Authority. However, unfortunately, the farmer's market was closed and the new construction has started. So I recognized Hell's Kitchen looks to be still on the way of redevelopment, right? So I recognize US, you have a very good, stable economic growth, especially in New York. One of the important factors is your stable energy supply structure, right? You have a shale gas, you have light tight oil, you have affluent coal, and so on. Unfortunately, in Japan, we don't have such a kind of affluent natural resources. But on the other hand, we have to overcome such a kind of disadvantage to stabilize our economic growth. We have always faced energy security issue. Because of it, we need a strategic approach to manage energy issue. Today, we would like to share the fourth strategic energy plan, just decided on April 11th. And firstly, I would like to share about, is this well?
I'm very sorry, they brought the
Yep.
wrong cable, so we're gonna have to wait 1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. Please wait 1 minute.
Coming up from the basement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard that you had a very good weather in last week, right? Yesterday, I saw the very bad. I saw good weather, but today we had heavy rain. So maybe something bad signal for me in New York. I don't want to see such a kind of situation. So please give your good questions.
Maybe while we wait, Toshi, I could just ask you a question just to start the conversation.
Yeah.
I think it might be interesting for the group here to know the process that Japan goes through in preparing this plan. How does METI generate the plan? Do you consult with other ministries? Do you consult with with industries? How does it work?
Okay. We have the Basic Energy Policy Act, and according to the act, we have to make the strategic energy plan. And so far, we made 4 strategic energy plans. And according to the act, METI has an obligation to draft a strategic energy plan and to arrange the relationship with other ministries and the industries, and we have to manage political process. And basically, every 3 years, METI has to examine the energy situation in Japan, and we have to make a judgment. We need to change the strategic energy plan or not. And the third strategic energy plan, we introduced in June 2010, before the Great East Japan earthquake. And in the third strategic plan, we decided that we would like to realize a target that we should realize 70% of natural power sources should be zero-emission energy sources, 70%. Zero-emission power sources means renewables and nuclear. And we had a target that by 2030, we would complete 20% from renewable and 50% of nuclear. Such a kind of plan we had as a third strategic energy plan in 2010, June. But as you know, in March 2011, we had a big accident, the Great East Japan earthquake and the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. After that, as you know, public opinion was so divided. And after the March 2011, we tried to introduce a new strategic plan, but we spent over 3 years to introduce a strategic energy plan. We had a very, diversified opinions on energy, and the political process was so, confused. And in DPJ government, the previous government, introduced innovative energy and environmental policy in September 2012. And based on the innovative energy environmental plan strategy, they tried to make a strategic energy plan. But on the way of making a strategic energy plan, government parties are replaced. So after the replacement, we restarted discussing about the strategic energy plan. And we spent 1.5 years to introduce this strategic energy plan. This is the process of this strategic energy plan.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would like to share the fourth strategic plan in Japan. And before starting the strategic plan itself, I would like to share the energy situation in Japan. As I mentioned, Japan is very short of natural resources. Our dependency on overseas fossil fuels are very high. In 1973, the first oil crisis, our dependency on the overseas fossil fuel was over 90%, around 90%, in the primary energy the structure. And now, 2012, the dependency ratio has reached at 92%. We can see more clear impact of the Great East Japan earthquake in power supply structure. In 1973, the first oil crisis, our dependency on overseas fossil fuel was 76%. At that time, still we used the indigenous coal for power generation. But we had a serious problem on oil supply. Because of that, we pursued two alternatives. One alternative to expand or use the natural gas. Now, our dependency on the natural gas is reached at over 40% for power generation. And also, nuclear was a very important option for us as a quasi-domestic power. And we made a big effort to reduce the dependency on the overseas fossil fuel. We succeeded in reducing the ratio of dependency to around 60%. But unfortunately, after the great earthquake, because of nuclear shutdown, our dependency on overseas fossil fuel for power generation has reached at 88%. This number is far worse than 1973 situation. That's a reality in Japan. And of course, self-sufficiency ratio of Japan is very low. The Japan's self-sufficiency ratio is the second worst in OECD countries. Do you know which country is worse than Japanese self-sufficiency ratio? Luxembourg. That's the reality. And we, Japan, and other Asian countries also are heavily dependent on Middle East oil. 80% oil to Japan's total oil supply has passed in front of Hormuz Strait, has passed in front of Iran. And not so many people well understand the procurement structure of natural gas in Japan. Natural gas procurement structure is relatively diversified. Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Qatar. But still, our dependency to the Middle East on natural gas is around 30%. Not so small number, especially after the Great Earthquake, our dependency to Middle East on natural gas is increasing. Because only Qatar, at that time, only Qatar has a spare supply capacity. So now, for power generation, 36% of natural gas from Middle East for power generation area now. And also, we have to pay our eyes on inventory situation. Regarding oil, because our experience in first oil crisis, we have enough amount of stockpile for oil. This number, 67 days, is just for private sector stockpile for only power generation. It means total oil stockpile is around 190 days. But on the other hand, regarding LNG, we don't have enough amount of stockpile because to make a LNG stockpile, we have to keep a very low temperature, minus 160 degrees Celsius. It means to make a LNG stockpile is very expensive compared to other resources. In the case of nuclear, we don't need to supply the big amount of fossil for operate a nuclear power plant. Because of that, we have already accepted enough amount of uranium in Japan. So if we would face the stop of uranium supply, even under such a kind of situation, we would be able to manage, operate a nuclear power plant at least 2 years. Okay, so the many people mentioned that we should use gas in Japan. We should use a renewable instead of nuclear, coal. But we have to understand what kind of impact from renewable capacity expansion. To increase the ratio of renewable energy by 1% to total electricity supply in Japan. In the case of wind power, we have to introduce around 2,700 turbines. That's realistic to replace nuclear to renewable perfectly, the coal to renewable perfectly. That's a big challenge for us as well. We need a renewable, but we have to be realistic. And next, so I would like to share the energy problem from economic perspective. We had a first trade deficit in 2011 in 3 decades. Fossil fuel import has rapidly increased. In 2010, fossil fuel import cost was 70.4 trillion yen. But in 2013, we had 27.4 trillion yen to buy fossil fuel. And the direct impact from the nuclear shutdown is estimated around 3.6 trillion yen per year. We have to pay additional 3.6 trillion yen to stabilize the power supply in Japan. This situation is giving a serious influence on Japanese economic growth, of course. And this is an example of what kind of situation we are facing on electricity price. This situation is in Tokyo Utility Company's area's electricity price situation for typical household. Electricity price increased 30% after the Great Earthquake. And this is a comparison of electricity prices in the world. Of course, Japan's electricity price is very high compared to other countries, except Germany in household area. Why Germany has such a kind of high electricity price is feed-in tariff system. And as you know, Japan, we also started feed-in tariff system from July 2012. And gradually, such a kind of influence we are receiving now. And outlook, how do you have the outlook of electricity price in Japan and the fossil price in the world? Japan, we replaced the nuclear to the fossil fuel in 2011, the first half of 2011, as you know. At that time, fossil fuels prices were not so high because of recession of world economy. But after that, we succeeded in recovering the economic situation in the world. Because of that, fossil fuel prices are rising. We cannot manage the rise of electricity prices in Japan under the current structure. And we are making a best effort, of course. On the other hand, unfortunately, the Japanese carbon emission is increasing. The non-electricity sectors area succeed in decreasing the carbon emission, but the electricity sector cannot avoid increasing the carbon emission under the current power supply structure. And we would like to see the Asian situation as well. The China, India, ASEAN will be a main engine to expand the energy demand in maybe 2 decades like that, coming 2 decades. And the coal will play a main role to stabilize power supply. That's a reality in Asia. But how to manage the carbon emissions problem, not only Japan, but also the Asia and the world, that's a big challenge for us as well. On the other hand, Asian countries, not only Japan, but also other Asian countries are heavily dependent on Middle East resource supply. We would like to reduce such a kind of situations, the impact. Because of that, many countries have a plan to introduce a nuclear plant. Asia and maybe Middle East will lead the expansion of nuclear power in the world. We are facing such a kind of situation. And how do mention about the new direction for energy policies in Japan? Is the fourth strategic energy plan. As I mentioned, we have already introduced a 4 strategic energy plan. And the third strategic energy plan, we tried to expand the zero emission power source, renewable and nuclear. But actually, after the great earthquake, we recognize such a kind of plan will not be completed. So we tried to replace the strategic energy plan, but we spent over 3 years to replace the strategic energy plan. In the introduction of strategic energy plan, we firstly mentioned that energy security is always a significant issue for Japanese. And this is the first time we introduce a special period from now to 2018 through the 2020 to complete various kind of reform for energy sectors. Now, we are doing an electricity supply system reform, as well as gas supply system reform. We will deregulate. We will make such a kind of energy supply system deregulated to introduce a competition and a new investment. And the U.S. will start LNG export to Japan from 2017. And maybe after 2018, we will see the serious number of LNG from the United States. And also, we will receive natural gas from Mozambique from 2018. And from 2019, Canada will start LNG export to Japan. It means around 2018 through the 2020, we will see the new supply structure on natural gas all over the world. Such a kind of impact, not only Japan, but also other countries will receive. And Japan, we have self-development right for oil in Middle East area, especially in UAE. We have to prolong our right to develop the oil field in UAE around 2018. And one of the most important factors to stabilize the world, the global energy supply, will be how to manage the nuclear. And in 2018, we, Japan and the US, have to revise nuclear cooperation agreement. So all those kind of big events have to be completed by 2018 through the 2020. It means if we would succeed in managing these big events, after this period, Japan will likely face a relatively stabilized energy supply structure. And of course, we will best effort to restore and reconstruct Fukushima. We have strong will to reconstruct Fukushima, affected by Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. And I have already mentioned about the problems Japan is facing. And in Japan, to start making a policy, we would like to set some kind of principle. And in energy sector, traditionally, we have 3 E+ principles: energy security, economic efficiency, environment, and safety. And this time, we add 2 other principles: global viewpoint, how to take a new trend in global energy supply structure, and economic growth, how to control rise of energy cost and activate the energy market. And based on these principles, we will pursue to construct multi-layered energy supply structure. From Japanese perspective, we have no energy sources to cover all these kind of demand. Each energy source has advantages and disadvantages. The point is how to combine, how to introduce an appropriate combination structure in Japan is the most important thing. It means in Japan, maybe other countries also has this kind of discussion. I like nuclear because of that. We don't need renewable or coal like that. Or I would like to introduce more renewable. We don't need a nuclear like that. But actually, the reality, we need every energy source. The point is how to arrange, how to construct the appropriate combination is the most important thing. And we mentioned that we say multi-layered. Why multi-layered? It means we would like to stabilize all supply chains for each energy source. So such a kind of multi-layered energy structure is very important for us. And also to bring the efficiency on energy supply structure, we would like to facilitate the demand response, and we would like to involve demand power to supply sector. These 2 directions is a basic direction to build new energy policies. And based on this thought, we position each energy like this. Renewable, it's very important, promising, and indigenous source. But on the other hand, renewable is very expensive and unstable. So how to cover such a kind of disadvantage is very important. Regarding nuclear, Actually, still in Japan, people have strong anxiety to use nuclear. Because of that, the public opinion is still divided. But on the other hand, nuclear has a various kind of advantages as well. Low carbon, cost domestic energy source, and efficiency because of the supply of fossil fuel to operate a big amount of the big size of the power plant. So because of that, firstly, we have to keep the safety for nuclear power plant. But in the case, Nuclear Regulation Authority confirms the conformity of the nuclear power plant with the regulatory requirements, which are of the most stringent level in the world. We would like to restart such a plant. Of course, we would like to lower the dependency on nuclear as well. And regarding coal has a big advantage on cost efficiency. But on the other hand, big problem they have, the carbon emission. So we would like to reevaluate the coal with the most advanced technology to reduce environmental load. Fortunately, Japan, we had the most advanced technology to reduce such a kind of environmental load. And the natural gas, we have already heavily depend on natural gas in power supply area. But on the other hand, natural gas has other kind of big potentiality. It means that we would like to facilitate a distributed power supply structure in Japan with cogeneration. Also, natural gas is a very promising material for producing hydrogen. We would like to expand the role of natural gas. And regarding oil demand in Japan is decreasing around 2% year by year. But on the other hand, in the Great Earthquake, oil and LPG were so important because of portability. These energy sources were the last resort for affected people. The problem is how to keep oil supply structure in Japan. Because the oil industry's capacity is much for the previous oil demand in Japan, but the demand is decreasing. So how to keep a healthy supply structure is one of the big questions for us. Because of that, we would like to facilitate industrial restructuring in oil sector. So these kind of things are the direction for each energy source. And how to manage the procurement of natural resources like that? Firstly, we would like to facilitate the diversification of supply source and support the private company in upstream in the North America and Africa like that. Also, we would like to improve conditions of the contract in LNG dealing, like destination cruise. And we also want to develop our seabed materials, methane hydrate like that. We are making a best effort to diversify the supply sources. And we have big amount of methane hydrate in deep sea water around Japan. We need a long time to develop these sources, but we have a big potentiality. And regarding energy savings, Japan is one of the most advanced energy saving country. We are proud of this kind of situation, but we have to make more effort. And actually, we have already introduced a various kind of way for energy savings, regulatory measures, and also support measures for all sectors, industrial sector, consumer sector, and transportation sectors. And we are seriously thinking to introduce a compulsory energy saving standard for house and some construction. And also to introduce a true demand response in Japan, we are planning to introduce a smart meter on this plan. And regarding renewable, we are very serious to expansion of introduction of renewable energy. Since 2013, we will accelerate expansion in 3 years, and we also established the ministerial level meeting to coordinate the facilitating measures in the government. But on the other hand, we have some problems, the cost and instability from renewable. So how to manage this kind of thing is a big challenge for us. Firstly, we are shortening the period for environmental assessment for wind and geothermal to accelerate the introduction of such a kind of renewables. Also, we promote R&D for the reduce the cost for renewables. But on the other hand, we would like to introduce other kind of approach. It means we also facilitate a distributed energy supply structure in Japan. We have very centralized power supply structure. But now, after the experience of great earthquake, we should facilitate the introduction of distributed energy supply system in Japan with renewables and cogeneration based on gas supply. And the feed-in tariff system. Feed-in tariff system is a very powerful weapon to expand the introduction of renewables. But we have to pay our eyes on the cost as well. We will examine the both sides to operate appropriately the feed-in tariff system. So this is the number of renewable energy ratio to total power supply. Actually, in 2012, renewables ratio except hydro was 1.6% in Japan, and 2013, 2.2%. After introduction of feed-in tariff system, renewables ratio is increasing like this. The upper chart shows the situation. But on the other hand, feed-in tariff surcharge also are rapidly increasing. In 2012, $19 billion around dollar, $19 billion that we have to gather for renewables. That we had a 1.6% renewables in 2012. In 2013, we had 2.2% renewables to total power supply. Surcharge reached at 350 billion yen. And in 2014, surcharge reached at 650 billion yen. The cost is rapidly rising. How to manage this kind of situation is very important for us. And regarding Fukushima, we are accelerating the Fukushima reconstruction through the R&D activities like that. And in nuclear, as I mentioned, Nuclear Regulation Authority gave a confirmation about safety. We would like to restart nuclear plants. Of course, we will more effort to improve our safety operation capability. And also, we have to examine the appropriate business circumstances for nuclear power. And actually, we introduced this kind of stringent regulatory requirement for nuclear power plant. And now, 18 reactors are waiting to receive confirmation about the safety from Nuclear Regulation Authority. And also, we would like to touch upon the back-end problem for nuclear power. So this part, we spend biggest portion to explain about this part, how to manage the back-end problem of nuclear power plant. Firstly, Japanese government will play a proactive role to select a final geological disposal place. In 2000, we actually introduced a legislation to select a final disposal place. But actually, that system didn't work. Because of that, Japanese government will give offer to the places has promising geological conditions to introduce such a kind of final geological disposal facility. And also, we touched upon, we would like to introduce a reversibility and retrievability for final disposal. It means in the future, next generation will have special technology to reduce the volume of the spent fuel and reduce the toxic level of spent fuel through the first reactors or some accelerator system. Because of that, the retrievability is very important for the future generation. And also, we will expand our storage facility for spent fuel. And in this structure, we will position the nuclear fuel cycle policy. And we will strongly keeping a stable nuclear fuel cycle policy with understanding from municipality people and the international society. Actually, if we do the direct disposal, we have to manage the spent fuel around 100,000 years. But if we will use a pure thermal, the one recycle, the toxic level, the period to reduce a natural toxic level to natural uran will be shortened to 8,000 years. And in the case of first reactors, we will be able to reduce the period from the 100,000 years to 300 years. But on the other hand, this kind of technology is just an infant level. We have to make more effort. But we have such a kind of potentiality to reduce the toxic level and the volume of spent fuel. We have to keep such a kind of effort by not only Japan, but also other countries like France and the US. And this strategy covered various things. I'm sorry. And we are promoting an effective use of a high-efficiency coal thermal plant. And also, we that we giving a strong commitment to complete the reform of electricity supply structure, the full retail competition, and legally unbundle the transmission sectors. And also, we will do this kind of reform for gas supply structure as well. So if we replace the existing coal thermal plants in the US, China, India, to Japanese advanced coal thermal plant, we would reduce a 1.5 billion ton carbon emission, which is bigger than Japanese carbon emission. So it means because of that, we are very positive to promote our export of the advanced coal thermal plant to other countries. We believe that we will be able to make a big contribution for climate change through these kind of activities. And we are operating the electricity supply reform as well, like this. And we will enhance the resilience of the domestic energy supply. Also, we will introduce a new structure for secondary energy supply. Especially, we are very serious to realize a hydrogen society. Several Japanese auto companies have a plan to start selling commercialized fuel cell vehicle from 2015. Because of that, we would like to introduce a 100 hydrogen station by 2015. Also, we would like to use reforms of energy sectors as an economic growth engine. And we would like to strengthen the international cooperation more and more, especially with the United States. Because so far, we had some kind of official agreement to cooperate in the renewable area and the nuclear area. But the US eventually decided to start LNG export to Japan. It means all energy sector will be able to discuss with American friends. And also, as I mentioned, Asian energy demand is expanding rapidly. How to manage such a kind of situation is a big challenge, not only for Japan, but also the United States. We would like to discuss with the United States to manage this kind of thing. And also, long-term strategic R&D is very important. And the most important thing is to keep a good communication with public. This strategic energy plan covers the various areas. There are a lot of challenges. We need the support from the public to complete this direction. We just start to find solutions in energy issues, but we will complete. Please keep in touch with us. Please give us your advice, your ideas like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toshi, for that extremely informative and comprehensive discussion of Japan's energy policy. I know there are going to be a number of questions from the floor. And before we start, while people are thinking of their questions, maybe I'll just ask you a few. And then I think Ka has a microphone in back and can bring it to people as they have questions. My first question is, actually, when was this strategic plan announced? Was it?
On April 11th.
April, so
yes.
It's very, very recent.
Yes.
And then, so what happens next under the Japanese system? I think probably most people in this audience are not familiar with the Japanese system. Now METI has announced this plan.
Yeah.
What happens?
Okay, so this plan is an anchor for coming energy policies. It means based on this direction, each energy policy will be restructured. And we have just decided to start some subcommittees to discuss about renewable policies and nuclear policies, energy saving policies, and fossil fuel policies like that. Usually, such a kind of subcommittees are operated at the same time to discuss about strategic energy plan, usually. But at this time, because this strategic energy plan is the first strategic energy plan after the Great Earthquake, because of that, to discuss about the new each energy policy, we need a clear direction. Because of that, I mentioned that we have just started to reconstruct our energy policies.
Thank you. And so as I understood your presentation, this plan gives a strong endorsement for nuclear power in Japan and its benefits for Japan. How will first, is that correct? And then how will that play out in the Japanese system? And in particular, are the prefectures subject to the direction under this energy plan? So I know the prefectures have a large role in nuclear power in Japan.
So now I'm going around over Japan to explain about this strategic energy plan, the Hokkaido, Aomori, the Fukui, blah, blah, blah. Every week I visited. And the prefectures and the cities with nuclear plant basically are very positive to restart nuclear reactors. But of course, we have to strictly keep a safety. So still, some prefectures and some cities are very, very cautious and very negative to restart nuclear reactors. But in the case of Aomori, the Fukui, those prefectures are positive to restart nuclear reactors. The opinions are divided, but now we are trying to share the reality of Japan about the energy situation. Also, first, when we use nuclear, we have to always prioritize the safety of nuclear plants. Now that we show the strong will, and we will do. So we try to take back confidence from the public. We are doing that.
Thank you. You had a few slides about coal. Could you say a word about coal in Japan? I was particularly struck by the world's most efficient coal plant, which you have. But at the same time, of course, coal consumption has been rising as nuclear power has gone down. What do you see happening with the policy for coal and the use of coal in Japan in the next years?
So now that we have a plan to introduce a new coal thermal plant, maybe the deregulation of electricity power supply structure will lead to such a kind of situation. But on the other hand, as I mentioned, fortunately, we had the most advanced technology on coal thermal plant, and all players will introduce such a kind of advanced technology to operate a coal thermal plant. So of course, we have to arrange the relationship with Ministry of Environment as well. They are heavily worried about the expansion of carbon emission. So because of that, to shorten the period of environmental assessment for replacement of coal thermal plant, we had a big discussion with Ministry of Environment. And in the case, we were the players, the utility company introduce advanced technology for coal thermal plant. Ministry of Environment to give a permission to shorten the period of environmental assessment. So such a kind of thing will support not to increase the carbon emission so much in Japan.
I have a few more questions and then throw it open to the floor. The solar power is growing a lot in the United States, particularly in the Southwest United States. It's amazing, actually. That's affecting the utilities very, very dramatically. You mentioned the feed-in tariff. Can you just say a word about what the current feed-in tariff is in Japan and how much you expect solar power to grow in Japan in the next few years?
It's a very good question. Firstly, because the solar power don't need to receive the environmental assessment in Japan, usually. So the solar power is leading. Solar power is the leading renewable energy in Japan now. But on the other hand, we have to pay our eyes on the cost efficiency. Because of that, in the strategic energy plan, we firstly touched upon the wind and geothermal. And we have already had a plan. That we have already a lot of plan to introduce a mega solar in Japan, the big size of solar power system. But maybe such a kind of road will show in 2 or 3 years. And how to manage the cost impact, it will be the big challenge for us as well. Yeah, but on the other hand, because the scale merit for the expansion of solar power, we are reducing the buying price for solar in feed-in tariff system dramatically to refrain the serious impact on energy supply. Maybe cost will be one of the important point to stabilize Japanese energy supply now.
And is there a national feed-in tariff that's the same everywhere in the country?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, we don't have the local specialized system. We apply the same price, the same buying price to each renewables.
All right. I was particularly interested to see your slide on methane hydrates. And methane hydrates, for some people here might not know what methane hydrates are, but they're resources that are often found in the deep ocean or in offshore, the natural gas trapped in ice, essentially. And I know a year or two ago, a Japanese ship tapped some methane hydrates. There was a lot of interest in that. Could you say a word about your government's research on methane hydrates, how much you're putting into this, and what your expectations are on that topic?
So we are very serious to develop the methane hydrate, but still, maybe we need a time to commercialize such a kind of promising resources. And regarding development of methane hydrate, Japan and the U.S. has a very good cooperation. Yeah, actually, the U.S. in Alaska, U.S. succeeded in making a first flare in the world from methane hydrate on the land, and Japan succeeded in making a second flare in the world from the seabed methane hydrate. So we have a plan that we will introduce a commercialized technology by 2018. We are doing the best effort to complete such a kind of the plan. But maybe when we will be able to develop such a kind of resources, it perfectly depends on the price situation of natural gas in Asia Pacific area. So we always have to pay our eyes on the economic situation and the global change of global energy supply structure. Yeah, that's our understanding. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Any questions or comments? Sir, if you'd identify yourself.
You'd wait 1 second.
Michael Bloom, formerly of the United Nations, and also a writer of an energy plan for the state of New Jersey once. I heard you speak about increasing LNG exports from the United States and Mozambique, I believe. Was that correct?
Yes. So the
And sorry, and
Yeah.
I was wondering, did I miss or did you mention potential LNG exports, imports from Russia? And if you didn't say anything, I wonder if that's possible.
Okay. So the first story. So the U.S. government has already given approval to start the LNG export to Japan. That the size of LNG export from the United States is around 20% of total Japanese LNG export. 20%, right? Import, Japanese LNG import. And Mozambique and Canada also will start around 10% of Japanese total LNG import from 2019. And you mentioned about Russia. Yes, you're right. Russia will expand their capacity to liquefy gas in the Vladivostok. Maybe Russia is one of the promising gas supplier to Japan. And we have already received the Russian gas. The size is around 10% of the total Japanese LNG import. And after then, how do you think about the dependency to specific country is one of our issue. So in this strategic energy plan, we mentioned that Russia is the promising country as an energy supplier. Also, before Crimea problem, Russia also faced some kind of difficulty to increase their LNG export to European market because the European countries also has a plan to expand gas-fired facilities to receive more LNG. So because of such a kind of the global geopolitical structure, Russia is a promising country. But on the other hand, we have to pay our eyes on the global political structure as well. So we give the financial support to build a liquefied facility in Vladivostok. But we have not yet given a commitment how much we will receive gas from Russia. Such a kind of situation we are facing now.
Thank you. Sir.
Thank you. Walter Goldstein, two questions which you really directly deal with. First of all, there have been countries, specifically Germany and Sweden, which have declared that they really want to phase out nuclear power and are making advanced decisions, advanced plans about how to do so. We often read in the public opinion polls, nuclear power, there's an aversion to it, which is stronger in Japan than in Europe. Do you envisage that there may be a turn of public opinion against this emphasis on nuclear power that you've talked about this morning? And let me add to that a second question, which is that President Obama has put a major emphasis on the need to meet the Kyoto requirements and a 30% reduction in emissions of greenhouse gas. Do you have a similar set of projections of what you want to achieve in the next 5-10 years? Because if you do, then clearly it will have a pretty major impact on all of the planning priorities that you've listed this afternoon.
So the first question is about public opinion on nuclear.
Yes.
So the public opinion on nuclear in Japan is divided, as I mentioned, and it's not easy to say. It means we have a very negative opinion on nuclear, but on the other hand, those people's opinions are not the same. It means some people heavily want to stop using nuclear power soon. Then some people mention that we should not depend to nuclear long time, but we have already had existing nuclear power plant. So such a case, at least before 40 years old aging, we should keep using such a kind of nuclear plant with confirmation of the safety. And other 23 to 30 people are supporting to use a nuclear power plant. So the public opinion are so divided. So, under some cases, this kind of the understanding of energy situation in Japan is supporting to change such a kind of opinions now. So I'm sorry. So my answer is the correct for you or not. So you mentioned about the European situations like that. So
I think you answered the question. It was about public opinion and how that would affect the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, so some people believe that the new generation nuclear power plant is very safety. So because of that, we should touch upon the new construction or replace of the aging nuclear power plant in Japan. During the discussion about the strategic energy plan, some person heavily mentioned about it. But on the other hand, the public showed a strong anxiety to use nuclear power plant as well. So because of that, we didn't touch upon the new construction issue and the replacement issue of nuclear power plant. And also, we touched upon we will reduce our dependency on nuclear power plant to the extent possible. So we, of course, we are heavily pay our eyes on the public opinion, frankly speaking. But on the other hand, we are facing a serious energy constraint as well. So how to give the perfect solution to both problems is a big challenge for us. So still, yeah, we need to keep the discussion. And regarding the green gas issue, we will introduce an energy mix soon after this strategic energy plan that we are examining what kind of energy mix we will be able to introduce. Based on the coming energy mix, we will calculate the carbon emission issues like that. So because our side, my position is to stabilize I'm in charge of stabilizing the energy supply structure. But on the other hand, we have to pay our eyes on management of the carbon emission problem. So how to find an appropriate solution is our obligation. But to give some kind of clear target, we need an energy mix. So we just start discussing about the coming energy mix.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Mohammed. I'm a senior analyst at Medley Global Advisors. My question revolves around the 18 power plants, nuclear power plants. I think there had been an expectation that by now we would have already seen a restart of some of those plants, but the process seemed to have been taking much longer than many expected. So I was just wondering if you can give us an update on where do you see that progress and whether we should expect any of those restarts this year, next year, etc.
Yeah, good question. So the firstly, so the new Nuclear Regulation Authority is in charge of the confirming a conformity of the regulatory requirement, and the Nuclear Regulation Authority is independent authority, independent organization. Because of that, we will not be able to touch upon when and which, and at least the Kawachi Sendai in Kagoshima Prefecture. Kawachi Sendai is the plant that just positioned the prioritized nuclear power plant to be restarted. But we are not sure when Kawachi Sendai will be restarted. And the government should not mention about it because still Nuclear Regulation Authority is a new organization, and they need to establish the public confidence. The government should not intervene in their activities. We always prioritize the safety of nuclear plants.
Do I understand it correctly then
Yeah.
that for a nuclear plant to reopen in Japan today, it requires the approval of the independent nuclear regulatory authority
You're right.
as well as the local government or the prefecture?
After receiving a confirmation from Nuclear Regulation Authority, the utility companies and the government will try to receive the, understanding from the local peoples like that. Yeah.
Thank you. In the back of the room.
My name is Jack Left, recent graduate. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a question. I know that Japan also has a lot of policies to promote electric plug-in vehicles with major goals by 2020. And I was wondering, as a climate change policy, how much do you think that could achieve without nuclear? In the sense that I know the policies were developed before the major accident, and so there had to be some recalculations. But since it was a climate change policy, how effective could it be without nuclear? How do you envision that this new scenario with that? Thank you.
So the first story, so the last year, Japanese government, the Ministry of Environment, declared that we would decrease the carbon emission 3.8% by 2020 without nuclear power. So before that target, in DPJ government era, we had 25% reduction of carbon emission with the 50% of nuclear power and the 20% renewable to total power supply in 2010. So that's such a kind, maybe we will be able to make some kind of imagine the impact of nuclear on the climate change area. And I cannot deliver the correct number about the target of the carbon emission now, because as I mentioned, we don't have energy mix. We need to make a target for reduction of carbon emission. We need an energy mix to calculate the carbon emission size and how much we will receive the impact from each resource source will come after energy mix.
And with respect to electric vehicles, actually, I don't remember you mentioning them in your presentation. Are electric vehicles part of your plan?
Yes. So in the strategic energy plan, we touched upon not only the fuel cell vehicle, but also the electric vehicle and the CNG vehicle all alternative energy vehicle we touched upon. So because so far the consumers could not choose energy sources when they want to buy the vehicle, because usually the automobile uses only gasoline. But from now, because of innovation, consumers themselves can select resource sources. It's very, very supportive to bring efficiency to energy supply structure as well. We believe that to introduce more efficiency in Japanese energy supply structure, we will promote such a kind of diversification of resource sources use.
Thank you. Sir.
I'm Charles Kimball with the Korea Center for International Finance. Do you have a backup plan in case the nuclear power plants, to a significant extent, cannot come back on stream? Hearing the earlier question about them coming slower, remembering the impact here on nuclear power in the United States with 3 Mile Island, it seems to me likely that you won't get 100% of them back. And if that you do have a backup plan, would half of the offset be from LNG and half of it be from coal, or would all of it be from one or the other, or what would the backup plan call for us, basically?
So we will discuss about such a kind of things when we will introduce the next energy mix. So now, we have no nuclear plant operated in Japan, but we succeeded in keeping a power supply. But on the other hand, we are heavily dependent on aging power plant. Our dependency to over 40 aging power plant was around 10% in 2010. But now, the ratio of dependency to aging power of the power plant is around 20%. So the power supply structure is vulnerable getting vulnerable more and more. So because of that, so utility company has a plan to introduce a new coal thermal plant, gas thermal plant, and also as we showed, we clearly mentioned that we will reduce the dependency on nuclear power plant. So that all those kind of things will give impact on energy mix. And maybe regarding a backup, so not only that we have to care about not only the small amount of nuclear power plants, but also the serious natural disaster when we will face, like the great earthquake. In the Great East Japan earthquake case, the utility company fortunately had an aging power plant. They are not operated at that time. And we resumed such a kind of aging power plant. And after deregulation of electricity power supply structure, how to keep the spare of power supply is one of the big questions for us as well. So those kind of things is heavily related to your question, the how to keep a backup, or what kind of backup plan we will introduce. We will discuss about such a thing in energy mix.
Japan's electric grid is divided in,
You're right,
unlike the United States, parts of the country are on different frequencies than other parts of the countries. Does your plan to speak to that issue, and is there any plan to try to make this into a single national electric grid?
So we don't have a plan to make such a frequency level integrated, But on the other hand, we have a plan to expand the frequency converters facilities from 1.2 million kilowatt to 2.1 kilowatt capacity. And we would like to increase the capacity of the frequency converters facility to 3 million kilowatt. And also, in the electricity supply reform, we have already decided to establish the new organization for cross-regional coordination for transmission operators. New organization will play a very important role to operate efficiently power supply over Japan.
Thank you. Let's see, I think we're just about running out of time. So why don't we got a question here and then right behind you. Why don't we do each of them? Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. It was a very enlightening presentation. I have a totally different question. When you present the slide, that Japan imports oil from different parts of the world, my curiosity is that why is Latin America is not part of it, especially given the long historical relationship that Japan has with Brazil and some of other Latin American nations. Why is that's not on the radar?
So firstly, of course, we have an interest to have a relationship with Latin American countries. But on the other hand, so there's some kind of constraint we have, the capacity of channel and the historical relationship in the oil sector, and the quality of oil itself. In the case of Japan, our refinery capacity is much for light type oil, but in the case of the Latin America, especially the Venezuela like that, they have very heavy oil like that. So all those kind of things are all those kind of things affect the oil import structure in Japan. So of course, we should restructure the refinery capacity in Japan to use more heavy type oil from firstly, maybe Canada like that. We touched upon such a thing. Maybe all those kind of restructuring will give some kind of influence on oil procurement structure of Japan. And of course, Latin America has a big potential to develop the deep water oil and shale gas in Argentina. We heavily pay our eyes on the situation of Latin America as well.
My name is Kyoichi Miyazaki. I'm with Potent Partners, and I hope you remember me. We went to the same high school.
Yes.
Looking at global LNG market, and especially Japanese market, I think it's really important that the Japanese companies, including the government, do everything we can to increase the bargaining power. And you mentioned about the destination clause issue for LNG contract, SPAs. And there are a lot of media, Japanese media especially, talking about that clause. And I think I have some idea about what the government and the Japanese buyers are trying to do with it. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this issue, how abandoning this destination clause will increase the bargaining power of Japanese companies? And secondly, and I think it's a little bit related, we know that TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power, is deciding on a partner, an alliance partner, and likely it's going to be another Japanese company. How this would increase the Japanese competitiveness? And I'm biased toward LNG industry because I'm dealing with this industry, but how would this increase the bargaining power for Japanese companies in the global LNG market? Thank you very much.
And could you just explain your question for those who may not be familiar with destination clauses in the audience, and just before the answer might be helpful
Well,
for people.
Okuya-san knows
Or
more,
either
but-
one of you, yeah.
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 So the destination, in the LNG contract, we have very special condition, the so-called destination clause. When we receive the LNG from gas supplier, we can, only one or two ports can accept the LNG from gas suppliers. We can transfer such a gas to other port. So such a kind of the constraint that hinder to make a spot market for LNG in Asia Pacific area like that. So because of that, we want to mitigate the constraint of destination clause. And we clearly mentioned about it in the strategic energy plan in April. And in the end of April, we had a G7 Energy Ministers Summit in Rome. And in joint statement, G7 ministers gave a commitment. G7 members should make a best effort to mitigate the constraint of destination clause. And in the top leaders G7 summit in Brussels, top leaders, the joint statement, in the statement also mentioned about the problem of destination clause. We should make a best effort to abolish the destination clause. So we succeed in cultivating we are succeeding to expand the support to mitigate and abolish the destination clause in the world. And also, Japanese government Japanese government holds a LNG suppliers consumers conference in Tokyo 2 times. And this year, we will also have such a kind of consumer and suppliers meeting in Tokyo to discuss about the destination clause issue. And regarding a joint procurement strategy, yes, that's a very important thing for Japanese consumers and utilities and gas suppliers. Historically, Japan is the first company to use LNG as a main power source. At that time, only Japan imported LNG from other countries. Because of that, we showed a strong bargaining power. But on the other hand, gradually other countries start using LNG for power generation, like Korea and other countries. Gradually, we lost the bargaining power. Because of that, in this plan, we would like to introduce a new type of joint procurement strategy. Usually, several companies make a union to negotiate with gas suppliers. But some cases, like a TEPCO, some company will be able to make a joint strategy to sell gas or to use a gas for power generation with other companies. Such a kind of case, they will be able to introduce, common and comprehensive gas utilization and gas procurement strategy. Maybe electricity supply system reform and gas supply system reform will promote such a kind of new strategy in Japan. And of course, the Japanese government wants to support such a kind of joint procurement strategy. And actually, I explained about the strategic energy plan in Tokyo to the many staffs from the various countries' embassy. And some countries have already shown to join to this new joint procurement strategy. And we are very open to invite the other countries' company to join joint procurement strategy with Japanese companies.
Well, we could keep on going, but we're out of time. But thank you very much on behalf of Columbia for sharing with us your really remarkable knowledge and expertise on this topic. And would you please join me in giving Toshi Okuya a big hand?
Thank you very much.